We're on the road to 1 million subscribers, and when we get there, 5 of you will win a world trip to the most incredible places in history. Catch new episodes every night at 7 p.m. UK, 8 p.m. Europe over 2 p.m. US Eastern Time. Subscribe now, because the next chapter of history could be yours. The birth of a tyrant born in blood and betrayal. Yeonsan-gun never knew peace. Whispers of his mother's violent fate carved madness into his soul. The boy grew with hatred in his veins, fed by palace intrigue. Every smile around him was sharpened with knives. A child of shadows raised in fear, abandoned by affection. He trusted no one. Servants trembled at his gaze. Ministers bowed with false smiles. The young prince learned early that power came through fear. And when he rose to the throne, that lesson became law. The throne of blood, 1495, Yeonsan-gun claimed the Joseon crown. The court expected a ruler of order. Instead, they received a beast of cruelty. His reign opened with suspicion, then erupted in merciless terror. Enemies were not judged, they were destroyed. The first purge, his mother's execution, haunted him. He saw traitors in every shadow, ministers, scholars, even distant cousins, slaughtered without mercy. Blood flowed through the palace courtyards, heads displayed as warnings. The throne had become a butcher's altar. The torture holes. Yeonsan-gun rebuilt the prisons, not for justice but for pleasure. Chambers filled with iron hooks, whips, knives, and screams. Noble families were dragged inside, broken before their king's laughter. Each scream was a symphony, to his deranged delight.
The king's lust. Awaken's power was not enough. He craved flesh and submission. Women were stolen from villages, dragged into the palace at night. No law, no ritual, no marriage. Only the king's hunger. Behind silk curtains, pleasure turned into torment. The palace of women concubines no longer held honor. They were captives. Guards patrolled their chambers, ensuring no escape, no refusal. One by one they were summoned, forced to obey his will. Tears mixed with incense smoke as the king's madness deepened. The festival of cruelty. Yeonsan-gun created festivals not of joy, but of humiliation. Women were paraded before nobles, stripped of dignity, mocked and broken. Wine and music drowned their cries. Nobles forced to watch in silence. The kingdom feasted, while its daughters suffered. The scholars' daughters. To punish his critics, the king took their daughters. Scholars who opposed him saw their families destroyed overnight. Books were burned, wisdom silenced by violence. Knowledge itself became another victim of his unending lust. The night of whispers. Rumors spread through Joseon. Every household locked its doors. Fathers hid their daughters in cellars. Mothers prayed in vain. The king's men stalked the streets, dragging innocents to the palace. Each night, terror walked hand in hand with silence.
The chamber of fear in the dead of night. The king's guards dragged women into his private chambers. Some courtiers' wives, some palace maids, all powerless before his hunger. Inside, the king demanded obedience, laughter turning to screams behind silk curtains. The palace walls echoed not with music, but with the cries of the violated. The king's hunting games. Yeonsan-gun treated women as prey, captured, caged, then summoned at will. His hunts no longer needed forests. The palace itself became his killing ground. Trembling maidens lined the halls, waiting for his cruel choice. One gesture of his hand sealed their torment for the night. The banquet of flesh feasts filled with wine and meat. Yet the king's true appetite lay elsewhere. He paraded his victims like trophies, humiliated before nobles and servants alike. What began as royal dinners ended in drunken assaults each night. Another life shattered beneath his shadow. The broken court ministers and scholars dared not speak, for their daughters were held hostage. Silence brought survival, yet shame poisoned every noble household. The throne no longer ruled with law, but with terror spread through women's tears. Every banquet, every council, carried the stench of abuse. The night of 100 wives obsessed with conquest. He filled his chambers with hundreds of women, some stolen from villages, others torn from noble houses. He renamed them his 100 wives. Though they were slaves in all but name, one by one they were forced to serve, until their spirits broke under his cruelty. The price of defiance, those who resisted were beaten, sometimes executed as warnings. A single refusal could doom an entire family. The king's lust was not passion. It was punishment, domination, fear. To Yeonsan-gun, every woman was both victim and weapon, a kingdom in chains. The capital bled beneath his tyranny. Mothers hid their daughters in cellars. Villagers wept, knowing the king's men would come. Even the palace concubines prayed for death, rather than another night at his side. Korea itself became a prison, chained by the madness of its ruler.
The King's Theatre of Pain. The palace became a stage, not for art, but for cruelty. Actors performed in fear. Women dragged on stage as props for his lust. Every performance ended in screams. Every applause drowned by sobs. Entertainment had become execution, masked as royal pleasure. The war on scholars. Confucian scholars begged for virtue. Yeonsan-gun answered with slaughter. Schools were burned, libraries reduced to ash. Daughters of dissenters were seized, forced into his chambers as punishment. Knowledge was silenced, replaced by tyranny and desire. The dungeons of desire beneath the palace, chambers of torment stretched in darkness. Women were chained in silence, their fate sealed by the king's command. Torches lit iron doors, where screams echoed endlessly. The dungeon was no prison, it was his secret harem of pain. The poison of paranoia. Every whisper fed his madness. Every glance seemed betrayal. He killed ministers in broad daylight, families erased from records, women accused of disloyalty, were beaten before his court. Paranoia ruled the throne, turning love into a weapon of terror, the river of broken bodies. The Han River carried more than boats. It carried corpses. Women who resisted were drowned, their bodies dumped like refuse. Families wept on the shores, powerless against the king's decree. The river itself became a graveyard of shame. The feast of death at royal banquets. Yeonsan-gun demanded blood. Victims were tortured for amusement, their cries silenced by drunken laughter. Nobles smiled through horror, afraid to look away. Every feast ended not in music, but in mutilation. The fall of innocence palace maids once dreamed of honor. Now they prayed for death. Young girls were forced into his chambers, their youth stolen overnight. No family, no village was safe. Daughters vanished without a trace. The kingdom itself mourned, drowned in the cries of the innocent. The tyrant's curse. Even his allies trembled. No one escaped his cruelty. The court whispered of demons, that his soul was already damned. Women cursed his name. Ministers plotted in secret. The seeds of rebellion grew, watered by blood and fear.
You've just unlocked another chapter of sacred truth, and your journey with God's wisdom continues. Return tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, when a fresh revelation may brighten your path and strengthen your faith. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a blessing-laden episode. Share this scroll of knowledge with family and friends, for when truth is shared, God's mercy envelops us, guiding and blessing in every circumstance. Your curiosity is our compass. Tell us in the comments which mystery you'd like to explore next, and together we'll unveil it by His grace. Until next time, stay faithful, stay watchful. May God's mercy and blessings be upon you always.